They should be under edge.
Okay.
So
We'll call the meeting, we'll just go ahead and call the meeting together, the September 14th meeting, 2021 meeting of the Cruisersburg Street Committee to order. We've been presented with an agenda, and we will, with Mr. Bishop's pleasure, we'll turn it over to staff. Okay.
Good evening, Jim.
Okay.
So the first one we got up tonight is the striping plan for Cambria Street northeast between Montgomery and Church Street. And what we did, and we being myself, Justin St. Clair, and Sam Holtsider, we went out and took a look at, well, we got a request in to provide parking on Cambria Street.
Can we get oriented first? Where's Montgomery Street?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Montgomery Street is
trying to visualize where that is.
Is screening south.
Is that in Old Cambria?
It is. It is. The railroad track is right down here. Because you can see the beginning of the cross.
Yeah, can you point out the new general store?
The railroad track and the trestle.
The general store is
I got you. Okay, I know where you're at now. Thank you.
So the request was to see if we could provide parking in this area. Okay. So we, being myself, Justin, and Sam, went out and took a look at the site distance. And we all know that there's a textbook site distance, and then there's a, hey, how's this going to work site distance.
Right.
So we went out and took a look at it. And basically, there should be no parking from this proposed hatching back to about this location right here.
Speed limit is 25, right?
Speed limit is 25.
Okay.
And as you're coming, this is down gradient as you're coming screen south, if you will. Mm-hmm. So the site distance is nowhere near as bad as what you would think, because you're looking up gradient past and over top of the vehicles. So what we did, we put this together. We'd like to put, since it's not a mid-block crossing, we don't feel that there's any need for any kind of flashing beacons or anything like that. We feel the standard MUTCD, ped crossing signage will work. Cross hatchet, and what she also proposed is maintaining a 12-foot lane, but the standard town parking space is 8 foot in width. We're actually going to a 7 foot. And what that will actually do, we think, is it discourage larger vehicles from trying to park in these spaces. So we feel this is a pretty good plan to accommodate what the request was. And we would install a no parking from here to corner. So that would eliminate any parking. And unfortunately, it is immediately in front of the store, but that is just not a safe condition to have a parking space. And we ended up providing parking on both sides of the street up to Church Street.
Okay.
So it's an effort to try to make it a bit more pedestrian friendly, a bit more of a destination area. And so we want to look at the full block instead of just, the area immediately in front of the general store.
So it has some calming effects, It has some complete street effects, because people will feel safer, feel like people aren't going to drive. Put it this way, even if there's not cars parked in the spaces, people are not going to be driving in the spaces, so it provides more separation between vehicles and pedestrians. So there's lots of pluses of that.
And it's still providing a standard traffic lane in both.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Even with the more often to stuff, if a larger vehicle comes up and down the road, are they going to cross the double yellow? Would they have to cross the double yellow?
They would not have to cross the double yellow. It is a standard ASTRO traffic lane width is 12 feet.
12 foot is what your lanes are on the interstate.
That's what
put things in perspective. And if you drive on South Main Street in Blacksburg, they go down to 10 and 11 foot lanes.
You can definitely feel a 10-foot lane.
You can feel a 10-foot lane.
Absolutely.
But a 12-foot lane is interstate standard, so that's plenty of width.
And if somebody veered across the double yellow, I would lump that into the sum of bucket of probably operator error. So they would not have to.
Well, I think it's a great plan.
And the 7-foot width would only be on the west side. The east side would maintain an 8-foot.
That is correct. That is correct. Yes, thank you.
And I'm sure the business will appreciate that too.
And we went out and actually I parked a town vehicle, and we parked 2 vehicles right here to use as our gauge. And what's going to happen is, as people kind of cheat up toward the edge of the travel lane, that just opens it right up. Because if by the textbook, if you put the stop bar where you're supposed to for the MUTCD, you're stopping way back here.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do that.
Right.
That is not how people function when they approach. You know, they'll stop and then they'll say, "Oh, I can't see," and then they'll inch up.
Sure.
And we feel this is a safe condition.
I think it's fantastic.
Okay,
So, Mr. Bishop, you okay with this?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you answered my question about vehicles crossing, have to cross, so if they do cross, it's because somebody wasn't paying attention.
there is a standard lane width that they can maneuver in on both sides of the road. So
It's generous. In fact, you could really go down to 11s probably.
you could.
You could go down to 11s and still be safe with trucks.
Okay, and this is going how far up to
This goes
church?
up to church, yes, sir. Right
So
here.
the post office,
Right,
the
where
old post
I said
office
it's
is
supposed to, right, okay, I'm with you.
to the top of the screen.
Okay.
And so the only improvements outside of the block would be the striping,
Mm-hmm.
on,
Okay.
coming down the hill and then on the opposite side, coming up the hill.
Coming up the hill. And that's just channelizing the traffic before they get to the, scooching you over before they get to the parking.
And you have your herringbones in the right direction too, for common oversight. Very good.
So the next thing we want to talk about is the intersection of Depot, Depot and Stone Street.
So this does not require council action, right?
So it was not on your agenda, and I mean, if you would want to brief them on it, I don't believe it would require council action, but I mean, it would be up to the committee whether you would want to.
Probably we
brief
should at
them on
least
it.
give them a report and let people know that we're doing that for the new, what's the name of the business?
It's the general store, the new, I'm not exactly 100% what the name of it is.
It's Cottage Farm General Store, and I'll confirm the name.
Okay.
But
I think we should give them at least that. And maybe not bring up the sketch, just tell them that the street committee reviewed some on-street parking to support the new business there.
Okay.
And also,
And it is consistent with with the Cambria placemaking plan as well.
okay.
It was developed last year. Or 2 years
It's
ago.
called Cottage what?
Cottage Farms, let me confirm.
Cottage Farms General Store. I haven't been there, but I saw the newspaper article on it.
It's a very
Y'all
nice
been there?
store. Yes, they have some really neat items, I had candy, they have
Yeah,
fruit
right.
and vegetables in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and, they also have, if you could get pinto beans, way out, amount of pinto beans you want, and then they have this kind of niche neat items, like that you'd see in kind of a novelty store as
Right.
well.
Sort of like the Ford Limo store.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it's
Cochran's or.
yeah, a lot like it.
Okay, very nice. I'll get that in. Okay, second item is striping plan for Depot and Stone. Okay.
Yes, sir. So this is just for orientation. This is the entrance. The Depot Park is right here. You go up the embankment to Plan West right here. Takes you up to Kroger's, the back entrance to Kroger's. So this has kind of been a free for all.
It is.
In here. So we've developed this striping plan for this intersection right here to accommodate 2 things: safer pedestrian crossing, and to trying to rein this little area in a little bit. So just kind of how we did out here with the double yellow striping. Once you put a stop bar and a double yellow in the middle of something, that draws people to it. So they immediately know, hey, this is where I'm supposed to be. So there's a there's an existing ramp on the south side of Stone Street. We're going to take out a section or two of sidewalk, build a new accessible ramp on the north side of Stone Street. We will propose the pedestrian crossing, and again, since this is a intersection crossing, it's not mid-block or anything like that, we're also going to propose the two pedestrian MUTCD standard pedestrian crossing signs. But what we're also going to propose is some additional hatching in these areas that will provide basically a safety island, if you will, for pedestrians crossing the street. And the orange circles represent the standing delineators, the plastic ones that you install. And if they get bumped, they just fall over and pop right back up. But we felt that was, people are going to cheat on the paint here, if you will. So we figured if we put something like this in, this will, force people to use a very ample width of the lane, which is 14.5 foot and approximately 13 foot on this side. So it will help rein this in, give the motoring public direction, and also provide a safe haven. Now, we are taking the pedestrians over into a grass section. So this is not much different than what exists today. And the thought was, we sat and debated this, we met out there, we thought, okay, well, we could put a sidewalk here, but at some point, this culvert is going to be replaced. And so we're a little apprehensive to go ahead and put the sidewalk in, because once you get across here, then where do you take it? Do you take it on around into the park? Somewhere you're always chasing that point of where do you end it. So we felt that, with the fact that this culvert is going to be replaced, we felt just striping it and taking this area up would be sufficient at this time. So that would be the draft striping plan for this intersection.
Where did this idea germinate?
So there were, go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
So there was at least one complaint about it, and then we looked at it. It came up a little bit during the rezoning for the Harless Street property, up Depot,
townhomes or whatever.
a bit, right, and just pedestrian safety along Depot, and we started looking at it. The conversation internally a couple months ago kind of mushroomed internally with staff, and we were looking at, well, also there was I think it might have been a picture that you took with the youth soccer games out there.
I'm down there at least once a week, sometimes twice, walking around, and it is a free-for-all.
Right. And so with the number of parking over there, we looked at, well, is there a way to increase the parking on site? Or do we eventually try to get people to park somewhere else and then walk to here? Do we create a safe trail up to Kroger? So it started to mushroom a bit. So we'd asked Mike to take a look at it, and really just at the intersection. So we kind of ratcheted it back down, at least to look at how can we solve this issue of cars coming in and out of Stone Street from Depot, and then providing a safe pedestrian way to the park as best we can. I mean, we still have, obviously, as you go up Stone Street to Kroger, for the driving public, as well as if someone's walking up that hill, because often people do park up there as auxiliary parking and then walk down the hill to go to the park. It's not great, but at least this is a first step in addressing the issues at the corner of Stone and Depot. So it has been something that's been kicked around for a while.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and VDOT calls it common sense engineering, Federal Highway calls it performance-based project design, but this is providing a very high benefit for a very low cost.
Right.
And if the staff gets credit for this, it's a fantastic idea, because it's low cost, high benefit, placemaking, safety. It's 100% going to enhance safety for cars and pedestrians in that area, because all of a sudden you see the stuff there and you start to pay attention.
Right.
So it almost makes me want to run for council again. There's so many exciting things happening.
And
This is fantastic.
This is definitely a high probability of pedestrian being vehicle
Mhm.
conflict.
It is,
Right.
and you have kids
So-
out there, you see
And-
strollers.
And the other, and I forgot to mention, putting the delineators,
Yeah.
this still provides a safe haven, if you will.
Yeah.
If somebody gets over here and doesn't know what they're going to do, especially if somebody would be having to cross it in a wheelchair, it still gives them a safe haven, if you will, before they continue on. If they have to wait for a vehicle or two or three, there's a place to do it. So.
Yeah, because I know there's a gentleman on a regular basis, I see him going up in a motorized chair,
Yes.
and he's going up to the park. And it's amazing, it's like Ray said, how many years have I been driving that intersection and just never thought about, I guess we get used to seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It's very clever
yeah.
and a fantastic use of resources it does so many things. I'm really impressed with that, yeah.
Relatively cheap.
Yeah.
With a high return on your investment, and does it conform with all standards?
It
No.
does.
It
Well-
doesn't have a sidewalk on the receiving side, but it is a major improvement. Anyway, I think you're to be commended for coming up with such a clever,
I will share that with staff. Thank you
it
for
is
that.
fantastic,
Thank you for that.
very well thought out. Wow.
So, any other thoughts or discussion on this one?
It's huge.
So, this was at the request of Chief Sisson right here. He has been in discussion with Montgomery County schools about this one. So basically what they're having a concern and an issue with people during drop-off and pickup that are coming planned south on this and making a left onto Depot Street. And what that is doing, as I understand it, is really creating a bottleneck, stacking up Betty
I've
Drive.
seen.
So what we're requesting is a single regulatory sign that basically denotes a no left turn between 7:30 and 8:30, and then 3:30 and 4:30, Monday through Friday. So right now, there is nothing except Chief and his staff put out you put out your
Yeah, we put out our signboard,
Your
it
signboard,
simply
thank you.
says that, because first 2 or 3 weeks of school, we were getting destroyed. And I was getting called by the superintendent, and I was up there every day, and I would sit and watch it. It's the only way, and there will be some people that are not happy, to not be able to make that left turn, but I sit and watched them. They could turn right, but they'll sit there to turn left for 2 minutes. So then you've got 30 cars behind them, school buses trying to get into the primary school, into the elementary school, and it is a disaster.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a disaster, because they got construction going on. We may, as they finish construction, we may get some relief, because they're doing the big loop behind the top school, which will be a drop-off, and get some cars off the roadway. So we reevaluate going into next school year, we may be able to say, hey, we can open that back up, we're not having the issue. But we definitely have a major issue right now.
So obviously, school buses don't come down that road.
School buses, some do,
Do they make a left?
but most have decided, okay, we're gonna go up, take a right, and go to the light. The first couple of days of school, we had a lot of buses that were stuck in that traffic,
Yeah.
so they couldn't turn left. It was tough for a bus to turn left, so I think they've acclimated and said, we're going up, taking a right, and we're going to the stoplight. That's the only way we're getting out. So, once this goes up, we haven't seen any buses come down, turn left now.
Okay.
I mean, some obey that sign, some do not. We get the sign up, they don't obey it. We send a message to 1 or 2, then we'll fix the issue.
Who does traffic control up at the top of the hill at the schools? I've seen crossing guard up there. Is that
It's
true?
Adam Horn, he's the SRO for the elementary schools.
So it's us, so it's
We
PA.
do. There's some school personnel that are trying to help out, but we're normally up top every day trying to help them out. That's
Okay.
not something we want to be doing,
Yeah.
because we have other things that he needs to do inside the school, but with the way it is,
Okay.
we didn't have a choice. We had to make that happen somehow. He gets those buses out.
Mm-hmm.
That's his main priority, get the buses en route,
Okay.
because they were 30, 45 minutes late in the morning and in the afternoon. The first week of school. And that stirred up the school.
Oh, I bet.
Some folks.
Huh, okay. So with all these designs and what are are we planning on putting these out and doing this work?
We have to schedule that through Public Works. They would be.
You're not here.
They would be, and honestly, they would probably sub that out to their striping contractor that they have. So it would be a matter of, getting approval to do it and then coordinating the work through Public Works and then through their contractor. So,
Okay.
which I think could happen in pretty short order.
Yeah.
It's not like it's, months out.
Right, okay.
I think it's a high benefit and low inconvenience. It's 2 hours on 5 days a week. And I think the general public will understand it's not putting a pork chop out there and making them go right. It's, hey, at these peak periods, you can't turn left.
And after Chief put his message board out, we did look at some of the posts that were out there, and most of the posts that we saw was, oh, I didn't see the sign, or oops, sorry about that. It was more of it wasn't complaining, it was about, oh, I missed that.
Right.
Kind of scenario.
Trust me, we had probably 100 complaints the first 14 days of school from parents who called us and said, hey, you guys need to fix this. The superintendent called me and said, you need to fix it. And I said, well, if your construction project was on time, we wouldn't have to worry about it so much.
Okay.
That's
It goes both ways.
So the superintendent didn't like it?
oh no, the superintendent, him and I sat and watched it, which is Tommy Cranston, which is his assistant. So he does most of the transportation piece. And he said, I've watched it for 3 days. We're going to make some adjustments on drop-off, but the only thing that's going to fix that bottom is no left turn. And I said, I know. This is what we said last year. We just did not do it.
Okay.
It's much worse because there's more parents dropping their kids off right now because they're worried about COVID on the school buses.
Right.
It's up like 30%.
Oh,
So we've got more cars in the lines.
Well, I would also recommend we put the orange flags up there to start with.
Okay.
The orange flags will get people's attention. When you put a new sign up, a couple of those orange flags is real attention getters. It's hard to not see those. Just a recommendation.
And we'll work with PR as well to look at new striping plans as well to make sure that it's, we can get the word out there. And I do think with the reconfiguration, there is going to be quite a bit of stacking space with the drop-off loop for both CPS and CES with the redevelopment, and then it's going to be the buses will be separated out from at least the drop-off traffic. So there's still going to be a lot of traffic up there, and it's not going to be perfect, but I do think it will be a lot better once the construction is completed and with the new design that they have.
Well, when Brad does the presentation to the town council, are you able to bring up these slides?
If you all would like, absolutely.
I think the council as a whole like to say what we're saying, because we talk about this stuff here, and then we go in there and kind of show, and they have no idea what it looks like. I mean,
As long as we don't get a big discussion, and that tends to get.
Well, you bring it up. I mean, they can bring. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no. If we want to flash them up, we can maybe. I just anticipate there's going to be a lot of people. I'll just say a lot of discussion.
Well, if we don't bring these up, you think there will not be discussion?
We'll bring them up. We'll bring them up. Maybe not bring the sketches up and say that we looked at 3 different parts of town. But if you feel strongly about it, we'll bring up the things.
I go one way or the other. I just think sometimes sitting in there when we bring stuff up, before I was on the committee,
Yes, sir.
y'all would talk.
Yeah,
What
right.
are they talking about? I mean, I'm a visual person.
I am
myself,
too. I am too.
Yeah. So my question to you would be, if we did bring these slides up,
Right.
do you think there would be any discussion? Why would the slides make a difference? I guess is what I'm saying.
go to Vegas and try it. We'll bring up the slides and say, and then if it's a long discussion, I'm gonna look at you and wink.
Okay, so we know not to do it again, though. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's a bad
No.
idea. That's, we'll go ahead and bring up all three, just give a quick update as to what action the street committee took.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know what
Okay,
you're
so
saying.
put the 3 slides in there for the street committee report, and we'll quickly present it, and we'll see how much discussion starts.
Don't give me a chance.
I can think of a couple council members that are gonna ask a bunch of questions, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's, okay, anyway.
But we'll do it, we'll give it a try.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So it's a good idea, Chief, and thank you for also bringing it up with the school district or whatever, the school system, just try to keep the karma good. Okay?
So, Andrew, did you have the?
The only other, I hadn't pulled it up yet, but it should be if you go to the file, there, the one on the right. And, so the FY '23.
There we go. Okay, so, the last item on the agenda today, just wanted to put it out there that, on the consent agenda tonight, our VDOT application, resolution in support of us submitting for, revenue sharing and for, TA funds. So just wanted to mention, quickly that, what's on the, revenue sharing, resolution would be the New Village Drive, signal, and then a signal at Stafford. We've also, asking for additional funds on the Cambria Trail and the North Franklin, sidewalk, between, Elm and Mill. We're also, asking for Roanoke Street, crossing and sidewalks, Roanoke Street, sidewalk infill.
In that area, like, is between Depot and Falling Branch.
Yes, between Depot and Falling Branch, correct. We're asking for North Franklin sidewalk infill. Basically, this would bring the Huckleberry down to the Aquatic Center. And Roanoke Street, pet improvement accommodation at Roanoke and First. So that is the revenue sharing applications. And
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes, sir.
Why are we putting in for a signal at New Village Drive and up on 14? I didn't think there was a warrant for that.
There is not a warrant for that, but these are projects that are pushed out basically to 2025 and 2027. So it's approaching the time where we may need a signal, and there's also other developments that are knocking at the door out there, if you will. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to go ahead and put in for it now.
I'm not a big fan of the signal if it doesn't have to have one, but that, if the staff feels like that, I just sort of wonder.
Okay.
With Stafford Drive especially, we are seeing that, you know, that at least with even the first phase we're still, it's still under review, but with the first phase of Clifton Town Center, that it's approaching.
It trips most of the warrants for a signal.
With Stafford?
At Stafford.
If I had to go back in time, that's one thing, if I was paying attention, and I know it's being recorded, but if I was paying attention, when we widened that section, we should have realigned Stafford and Majestic and made it a four-way intersection, because those operations in there, we could have, and let VDOT, that would have been a VDOT, part of the VDOT project, they would have had to get the right-of-way for that and just make that happen, because that.
Probably have to take a house or two on the corner. Yeah, that's not in the wall, but from.
Like I said, yeah, it's painful at first, but boy, that would have set us up.
Yeah.
But I'm not, of all those projects, I understand all of them, that one, I'm not saying, but if that staff feels like that's a good idea. But there are other applications out there coming in?
There are. So, for the transportation alternative applications, we're asking for both revenue sharing and TA funds. So these are repeats of the infill sidewalks, the Roanoke, the pet accommodation, and the Roanoke and the North Franklin sidewalk infill. So these are the same projects in this lower quadrant. We're asking for revenue sharing, and we're asking for TA. Now,
What is TA?
Transportation alternative funding.
That's 80/20? 80% federal, 20% town, and revenue sharing is 50/50.
Correct. So just wanted to put that out there. That's on consent agenda tonight, but definitely thought it was worth bringing up to the street
Thank
committee.
you for, yeah, it's really good. And it's come a long way as far as the town doing these types of projects, and it's noticeable all over town.
This is exciting for me because I'm just now getting into this part of it. Justin and Wayne were doing this primarily, so I'm really starting to cut my teeth into this side of meetup funding and all this. It's a fairly complicated process, but it's grant funding's always it's always worth going after. So this is exciting.
That's a very good update. So what else do we have?
I think those are the only items that we had on the agenda. I was thinking 10 to 15 minutes per item, so we kind of fitted in a little quicker than I had anticipated, so I do apologize for that. But,
Yeah, so next time you say 6 o'clock, we shall be 6:30.
Can we bring up, well, I guess if we have a few minutes, we want to figure out and everything, I'll ask the chief. Sam Bauer wrote me an email. Does he live on Montgomery? On
I actually spoke to
Or
him.
no,
Allegheny Street. Yes, thank you.
Spoke to him in the pharmacy the other day as well.
Well, he wrote me an email several weeks ago about, the status of traffic calming in that whole area. Do you have any, what was he wanting?
Out of all due respect for Mr. Bauer, who I think is a remarkable man.
Yeah.
The traffic calming measures there have proven to be effective.
Okay.
Now, he has a concern that when folks pull up to a stop bar, some have loud exhaust,
Right.
so they're hammering that at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
which he didn't hear before.
Right.
So now he's hearing that.
Right.
He says there is some speeding, but I think his biggest concern was the truck traffic, because that's a weight limit
Okay.
highway, which
This is on Allegheny.
Allegheny.
Is this not the same one I brought up a few months back? Does he work at BP?
No, he's a retired professor.
He used
over there.
to be a tech professor.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So, and I told him I was going to provide him some extra patrol. I've asked that to our guys before, saying that's a weight restricted highway. You catch trucks on there, you stop them and write them for that ticket, because they do not need to be on that roadway.
And they're posted.
They're posted on both
right?
sides.
What's the weight limit, 15 tons or something?
I can't remember the tonnage weight. It seems like it was.
I checked it.
I thought I have too. I thought it was 4, but that's too light. 4 tons.
Okay, but
4
it's,
tons, that's.
okay, but it has a weight posting, basically restricting the size of commercial traffic.
And our guys are very familiar with that. They know that's street smart. They can write those summonses for trucks traveling.
Right.
Because when that become a cut through, we did have some major issues with that, and especially when they were doing construction.
Yeah.
And, on the South Franklin side, they were using that heavily, which whether they come through town or take that shortcut, I don't know. That's a double-edged sword, but I have a lot of respect for Mr. Bauer, so I promised him that I would do everything I can to help with that.
He means well, and Mr. Bishop, as I've sunset here, probably the best metaphor for traffic, just to keep in mind with all these discussions, is that traffic flows like water, and it travels through the path of least resistance. It finds the shortest way to get. And when you restrict, put it this way, when you squeeze one water pipe, or if we do, traffic calming on one street or stuff like that, when you restrict one pipe, it doesn't mean there's less traffic overall. It's gonna find a different pipe to go down. And so we got into this situation between Elliott and Allegheny Miller. And when you restrict one, then the traffic shifts over. They say that's no longer the easy way to go. The easy way to go is this other street. But just to keep that in mind, just making traffic decisions that flows like water. And you can solve one problem and create another one.
We fixed Allegheny, we fixed Allegheny, and then we started getting complaints on Elliott.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
And then we tried to fix Elliott with a four-way stop, which, that's Band-Aid.
And, yes.
But it's worked. If you run traffic study comparison on speed data, we've reduced the speed on Allegheny Street.
And that is done, that positive is just a long road to get there.
So Randy,
8,000-pound limit.
yes, so
So 4 tons.
Yeah.
So Allegheny would be the key is over here. Would be,
Oh, look at
over
that.
8,000, under 8,000.
We also did the same thing on College Street, didn't we?
7,000 pounds there.
Oh, but yeah, weight restriction, same thing. Keep. Very good. And all those 3 streets are all really pretty narrow too, aren't they? Especially College.
Yes, definitely.
Say College is probably 18 feet of pavement probably, yes, no more than 20.
At least in spots, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a very good presentation, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm really impressed with the solutions that this one takes to cake. That thing is really great. So we'll go ahead and present it to council, and we'll see what happens.
Hey, Sheriff, it's up to you. That was just a question. I'm not pushing you off.
No.
I know it's gonna be, I know.
Flash them up and see what happens.
Let's keep on moving.
See.
I know what you're saying. Either way.
Okay. Well, thank you for.
Absolutely. And if you need me to zoom in on anything or point something out, just let me know.
Just plan on bringing up those 3 sketches, and we'll quickly go through them.
Be ready to move.
Yeah, and I'll say if you have any questions, wait for the end. And we'll just present all 3 of them and just say. Present all 3, and if there's any comments or questions, leave them to them.
Good luck.
Yes, that's right.
All righty then.
Okay,
Mike, appreciate your work on it.
very good.
Superintendent off of me
Yeah, great.
before the end of the school year.
So, yeah.
Then you get bus drivers starting to call you.
Oh, yeah.